Isaiah's mind is one constantly engaged, a lens turned inward and outward simultaneously, perceiving what others cannot, understanding what others overlook, and shouldering a weight few could comprehend. To understand Isaiah psychologically is to understand the tension of knowing too much and feeling too deeply, the challenge of holding both vision and responsibility, insight and isolation, moral clarity and human imperfection. His consciousness is never idle. It is a conduit for divine perception, a mirror for society's failings, and a compass for a path that others cannot yet see. From the moment of his calling, Isaiah is drawn into a state of heightened awareness. This awareness is both a gift and a burden. Cognitively, he perceives patterns of human behavior, social structures, and ethical consequences that remain invisible to those around him. His mind continually synthesizes events, motives, and potentialities, connecting past, present, and future into a coherent moral landscape. Emotionally, he experiences the strain of this awareness as empathy intertwined with moral urgency. The suffering of his people, the missteps of leaders, and the fragility of justice weigh upon him. His emotional life is intense, nuanced, and regulated, not by indifference but by purpose. Isaiah feels acutely, yet he tempers that feeling with clarity and direction. A defining characteristic of Isaiah's psychology is anticipatory moral reasoning. He is constantly evaluating the trajectory of human action and its consequences. Every choice, every speech, every gesture is filtered through the dual lens of divine expectation and social reality. Psychologically, this demands executive functioning of the highest order. Foresight, planning, ethical analysis, and strategic judgment converge in a mind always 2 steps ahead. Isaiah sees the immediate dynamics of his society while simultaneously envisioning the long-term spiritual and moral outcomes. This dual temporal awareness creates a mental load few could sustain, yet it is precisely what equips him to act as a moral and prophetic guide. Yet awareness alone is insufficient. The prophet faces isolation, a psychological consequence of insight. Isaiah's perception separates him from the normative flow of thought around him. He inhabits a space between divine vision and human understanding, aware of realities that others ignore or deny. This isolation is not merely social, but existential. The clarity of perception generates distance, yet he cannot retreat from the role he has been assigned. Isaiah must navigate this separation with skill, translating insight into communication that resonates, persuades, and inspires action. His social cognition is heightened, calibrated to interpret reactions, anticipate resistance, and adjust messaging without compromising moral fidelity. Faith operates as the core scaffold of Isaiah's psychological structure. It anchors his cognition, shapes his emotional regulation, and integrates his perception with purpose. Faith is not passive. It is an active, sustaining force, allowing him to endure the pressures of responsibility and isolation. It transforms insight into guidance, perception into strategy, and awareness into action. Through faith, Isaiah can tolerate the cognitive and emotional burden of seeing a society's failings, while simultaneously envisioning redemption. Psychologically, faith functions as a stabilizer, a motivator, and a lens through which meaning is derived. Isaiah's mind demonstrates remarkable cognitive flexibility. Moral, political, and social complexities demand adaptive problem solving. The prophet continuously integrates new information, evaluates potential outcomes, and navigates evolving challenges. His flexibility allows him to maintain moral integrity while responding effectively to shifting circumstances. Emotionally, cognitive flexibility supports regulation, enabling him to communicate urgent messages without collapsing under the weight of despair or frustration. The interplay of insight, flexibility, and emotional regulation defines his capacity for sustained influence. Expectation forms another psychological dimension. Isaiah is burdened by the convergence of divine expectation and societal anticipation. He must embody moral authority, deliver precise warnings, and provide guidance in a context of resistance and skepticism. This creates constant internal monitoring as he calibrates not only the content of his communication, but also its timing, tone, and impact. The mental load of expectation is immense, yet it drives a disciplined, reflective, and intentional approach to his prophetic duties. He develops a heightened metacognition, continuously reflecting on his own judgments, biases, and strategies, ensuring alignment with both divine principle and practical reality. Creativity is central to Isaiah's psychological functioning. Conveying complex moral and spiritual truths requires imagination, metaphor, and symbolic articulation. The mind must translate perception into language that engages cognition and emotion simultaneously. Isaiah uses imagery and narrative to capture attention, convey urgency, and inspire reflection, Creativity is both a cognitive tool and an emotional conduit, allowing him to convey intensity without overwhelming his audience and moral complexity without alienation. Resilience defines Isaiah's psychological endurance. Repeated encounters with disobedience, corruption, and human frailty necessitate emotional and cognitive fortitude. Resilience manifests not as mere resistance to adversity, but as adaptive persistence, absorbing disappointment, recalibrating approach, and sustaining engagement. Faith, reflection, and social insight sustain resilience, allowing Isaiah to continue guiding, warning, and encouraging despite persistent challenges. He develops psychological mechanisms for pacing, emotional regulation, and cognitive reframing, ensuring sustained functionality over time. Hope functions as a critical psychological anchor. Despite witnessing societal moral decay and leadership failures, Isaiah maintains a vision of restoration, justice, and divine renewal. Hope is not naive. It is deliberate, calibrated, and sustaining. It energizes perseverance, mitigates despair, and structures interpretation of events. Psychologically, hope allows Isaiah to maintain engagement, inspire others, and sustain moral focus amidst widespread resistance. Hope integrates with cognition and emotion, forming a unifying thread that guides judgment, action, and endurance. Social cognition is crucial in Isaiah's psychological profile. He perceives the motives, intentions, and vulnerabilities of leaders and people alike. Anticipating resistance, evaluating receptivity, and calibrating communication are constant tasks. Isaiah must navigate a complex moral and political landscape, leveraging empathy, perspective-taking, and strategic foresight to convey warnings and guidance effectively. His psychological skill in social analysis ensures that his insights do not remain abstract, but are translated into influence, persuasion, and action. Isaiah's consciousness is defined by cognitive emotional integration. Perception, reflection, ethical reasoning, relational awareness, and faith converge to produce coherent, principled action. Emotional regulation stabilizes moral clarity. Cognitive flexibility enables adaptive strategy. Social insight ensures relational efficacy. This integration creates a mind capable of sustained, high-level moral engagement while navigating complex societal and spiritual terrains. Yet the weight of responsibility produces internal tension. Isaiah experiences moral urgency and strategic patience simultaneously. The imperative to act is constant, yet action must be measured for maximal effectiveness. This tension requires emotional discipline, ethical calibration, and cognitive foresight. Isaiah must balance immediate warning with long-term strategy, intensity with tact, and insight with empathy. The psychological demand of balancing urgency with patience is both exhausting and essential to his prophetic effectiveness. The burden of expectation is compounded by internalized standards. Isaiah's mind continuously evaluates performance against divine, moral, and personal ideals. The prophet internalizes responsibility, holding himself to exacting standards of moral clarity, strategic precision, and communicative effectiveness. Failures, even minor, provoke introspection, adjustment, and renewed effort. Psychologically, this self-monitoring enhances efficacy, but also amplifies stress, anxiety, and self-critique. Isaiah's resilience is inseparable from this conscious navigation of expectation, failure, and perseverance. Confrontation with human imperfection shapes Isaiah's psychological profile. The prophet is aware of limitations, societal resistance, flawed leadership, and entrenched human tendencies. He navigates disappointment, skepticism, and opposition with patience, insight, and strategic action. This awareness produces humility, reflective depth, and moral grounding. The psychology of confrontation is mitigated by faith, hope, and ethical clarity, enabling Isaiah to maintain alignment with principle while responding adaptively to real-world limitations. Emotional intensity is a defining feature. Isaiah's empathy, moral sensitivity, and anticipatory awareness create a depth of feeling that must be regulated to sustain effectiveness. The prophet experiences sorrow, frustration, and longing acutely, yet channels them into action rather than paralysis. Emotional regulation is not suppression, but integration. Emotions are acknowledged, contextualized, and harnessed for moral and strategic purposes. This psychological integration ensures resilience, clarity, and sustained engagement. The long-term cognitive emotional architecture of Isaiah's mind is shaped by vision, insight, and moral responsibility. His mind synthesizes information across time, space, and relational networks. He evaluates patterns, predicts outcomes, and integrates perception with ethical principle. Emotionally, he maintains attunement to human suffering, societal dynamics, and divine imperatives. Cognition and emotion converge in an integrated system, enabling prophetic function while preserving psychological endurance. The paradox of Isaiah's psychology is the interplay of isolation and relational influence. Insight separates, yet communication bridges. Vision alienates, yet guidance connects. The prophet experiences cognitive isolation while cultivating social efficacy, balancing distance with engagement. Isaiah's psychological skill lies in navigating this paradox, sustaining both relational influence and moral fidelity. Isaiah's enduring psychological feature is the capacity for reflective meta-awareness. He monitors thought processes, evaluates judgments, and aligns action with principle. This metacognition supports self-regulation, moral clarity, and adaptive strategy. Reflection enhances resilience, guides communication, and ensures alignment of insight with purpose. The prophet's self-awareness is both a source of strength and a mechanism for ethical accountability. Hope, vision, resilience, and moral clarity converge to define Isaiah's inner life. His consciousness integrates cognitive foresight, emotional attunement, social intelligence, and spiritual alignment. Isaiah is psychologically equipped to navigate profound societal, ethical, and spiritual challenges. Yet this integration carries costs: emotional weight, cognitive load, moral tension, and social isolation. The prophet's psychology is a balance of gift and burden, insight and responsibility, perception and action. Isaiah's psychological legacy is the capacity to perceive, interpret, and influence with depth, precision, and moral integrity. He demonstrates that heightened awareness and insight, while isolating, enable transformative engagement. His mind exemplifies the integration of cognition, emotion, and ethical principle, producing a consciousness capable of guiding, warning, and inspiring even in the face of persistent human imperfection. The psychological portrait of Isaiah reveals a figure of rare depth, a mind attuned to divine vision, a heart aligned with moral truth, and a consciousness that bridges insight and action. In understanding Isaiah, we recognize the human dimensions of prophetic life: the cognitive burden of foresight, the emotional intensity of empathy, the strategic navigation of expectation and resistance, the isolation of insight, and the resilience cultivated through faith, reflection, and hope. Isaiah's psychology teaches that the integration of insight, emotion, and ethical responsibility is both arduous and profoundly meaningful. The prophet's mind illuminates, challenges, and guides, demonstrating the profound complexity of a consciousness shaped by divine purpose and human reality. Isaiah's life and mind remind us that heightened awareness is rarely comfortable, yet it is essential for moral clarity and transformative action. His cognitive, emotional, and moral integration produces a model of psychological sophistication that navigates complexity with grace, endurance, and insight. To study Isaiah is to study the interplay of vision, responsibility, and humanity, revealing a mind of extraordinary depth and a heart committed to justice, hope, and divine alignment. The prophet exemplifies the potential of human consciousness when aligned with ethical, spiritual, and societal purpose, navigating the tensions between isolation and connection, perception and action, insight and endurance. In the end, the psychology of Isaiah is a testament to the complexity of a mind that sees deeply, feels acutely, and acts purposefully. His consciousness is a dynamic interplay of cognition, emotion, and morality, illuminated by faith and sustained by hope. Isaiah stands as an example of the human potential to integrate vision with action, insight with empathy, and moral clarity with strategic engagement. The depth of his mind is mirrored in the depth of his heart, and in that integration lies the enduring lesson that true understanding, responsibility, and moral courage come not without cost, but with profound capacity for impact, transformation, and human flourishing.